Hi everybody, welcome back to this week's My Weekly Rage Fix. Hope you all had a great week. In this week's Parsha, Parshas Noach, we learn about the Great Flood. And the Great Flood is a big question among scientists whether or not it really happened. We're going to skip over that. We're going to assume, of course, that it did happen. But the question that I want to share with you is a question that many a person asks, whether they're secular, whether they're religious. And the question is that if we try to follow the chronology of the Torah from today all the way back, we'll pretty much get to a world that seems to be a little less than 6,000 years old, which is what we believe. Yet the scientific world seems to believe that the world is 13 billion years old, give or take 1.1 or 2 million here, 100 million here or there. But all kidding aside, around 13 billion, we're at close to 6,000. How in the world could the two coincide with each other? And I want to propose to you like this. Now, at the time that the Great Flood happened, we have to try to understand first in a simple explanation. Everybody knows that water can penetrate a rock. And if you were to look at water dripping down on a rock, eventually there's going to become a hole. Now, the depth of that hole will determine upon the rate at which the water is dropping, plus how much is coming, how often that water drips down. But all that will determine how deep that hole will come. Now, if we were to let it continue dripping at one rate, that rock, the hole in that rock rather, would take much longer for it to develop. However, if you were to shoot a fire hose at it for a long time, obviously the rate of erosion in the rock would be accelerated, and that hole would be created much quicker. Now, if you just brought in a scientist and asked him to date how old that rock is, how long that hole has been in the rock for, so he'd look at the water dripping, and he'd look down at the rock, back up at the water, and he'd come back constantly, and he would see that the rate of the water doesn't change. He'd come back every year or something, and he sees that the hole is still there, and he would tell you that based on the amount of depth in this rock, with the rate of water dripping, it would be this and this old. However, if you were to try to fool him and shoot a power hose at it for 2 years before he would come over, you would completely fool him because he doesn't see that there was this incredible force. Now, comes along the flood. Okay, the world was how it was. Hashem created the world. Along came this incredible flood. Our sages tell us it was very heated, it was very violent, and it stormed over the lands, it leveled mountains, and it actually caused new ones to raise. It transported materials and it laid down ocean sediments. Therefore, you had dead animals, dead men that were covered almost immediately, different plants also buried in the soil. The fossilization didn't even really take place because the sediments couldn't even set in to allow there to be everything decayed quickly, and that parenthetically it also explains the great phenomenon of layered deep sea fossils pretty much everywhere. Even on top of mountaintops, they'll still find fossils of marine life, which prove that once upon a time there were waters that covered up the mountains. But basically, the idea we're trying to share is that these waters were so turbulent that the rate of erosion that normally would be was so accelerated, and it was 150 days at that power. And when you have God's churning over the waters with that heat and with that force, everything is obviously accelerated, just lending to the fact that the world looks actually older than it is. That's just but one explanation for one of the types of methods that they use. I just wanted to share how we could say that the two can actually be in harmony with that explanation. Of course, if you don't believe in the Torah, then you don't believe in a flood, and you don't believe that happened. And in order for something to accelerate like that, it would actually need millions or billions of years. Have a great Shabbos. Talk to you next week.